Good day, everyone. You all hear me and see my screen okay? Awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to do a little bit of a shorter forward focus here today, be about half hour, 45 minutes. Hope all of you are nice and stuffed from your Thanksgiving. We had a little bit of an oddball Thanksgiving here yesterday, but let's see here. Flip on over to our screen. And we're going to start with the NASDAQ. Our lovely, lovely NASDAQ. If it doesn't eat my... There we go, my chart. All right. I'm going to pull up our daily chart here first. We've just been kind of hanging out up here. The market's a little bit on the extended side. We've seen this good run here. We didn't end up getting our Momo 2T setup that we were watching for, which would have happened right around in here. We actually had a little bit too much strength over the course of this past week to really get that to turn around at that point. I'm still cautious on upside strategies, basically kind of looking at, smaller time frames and following the momentum that's going on those. We look at the daily chart here, you'll notice we've got, basically we're kind of on wave 3, but it's a messy third wave up. Nothing even close much for like measured move levels, except for perhaps this here. That's as close as we've really got for measured moves. But now what we're having to look at is, because this isn't going with the Momo 2T, it's kind of pushing through that level that we needed to see for the measured move here. It's treating this more like it's a trading range now. So it's kind of going past that do or die point for that strategy and is pushing up to the next level, which really means that this over here is going to be next major level of resistance. So we could conceivably have a run like this since we are pushing through that level. So kind of cautious here on our reversal strategies. We've had some intraday stuff, but not really a lot. Let me go back to that 240. Come on, maybe. So what you can see is the market tried to turn around the other day when we had this momentum shift here. So we had strong, slightly weaker, then struggling to break out. So we had that attempt to turn around, but when it got into this zone, you're basically at do or die point here, and it just couldn't even go. It couldn't go with the 1-to-1, couldn't go with the bigger one. So this breakout is pushing things to these higher levels. We are trying to see this shift momentum again intraday, but not really a solid reversal yet, because this could easily just change and pop back on up here. So right now we just have basically scalp type of moves. It's easier for things to flush on the downside now than it is on the upside, but we don't really have a strategy for it. Here's the kind of a bit of a closer view. You can kind of see that 1-to-1 measured move here. So basically what it did was it treated that attempt to break higher as basically just an early attempt, pulled back into the support with the 2-wave move, and then couldn't get that avalanche to develop to get it to turn around. So without that, we're at a point here where we could see things like possibly inverse head and shoulders, trying to pull this up just a little bit more. There is the potential for a shallow avalanche to develop here, but it would need to basically base out like this. So we're in one of those zones where trading is higher risk right now, and we've seen that here with the intraday action on the NASDAQ so far. We've had great smaller time frame setups, but nothing on a bigger scale that indicates we're going to get a lot stronger follow through yet. So here's kind of, I want to show you the one, I only had one trade here on the NASDAQ today, and it was just this 2T here. So what we had was this pulled back up into this prior high, hit it pretty strongly, but then I had a nice 2T with a double chance right at that level. I'll show you the detail on this a little bit better. A smaller time frame. Here you can see that 2T really clearly. So here's our 2T, and then here was the second chance with kind of that shallow avalanche. Two waves down, then hit support again. And since then, it's been pretty choppy. You know, we've moved back up into here. Wasn't really a great setup. We had a little bit of like a Momo plus. Here's kind of the momentum reversal plus here. I saw it, but I didn't trade it. So 1, 2, 3 here, two-way pullback, two-way back up. That's the momentum reversal plus right here. And then it did a double tap on the momentum reversal plus, but it only had one wave up. So basically you're at like this midway zone. So I was like, I don't know. Didn't really care too much for it. It's turned around, you know, pretty decent sell-off, but look at how choppy things have been since then. Just scalp action. We are having, you know, circumstances where we're getting some of the nice two-wave moves, but not much for better setups right now. And you can see the 3 minutes pretty messy too. We did have nice setups yesterday. Here was that Mega Phoenix, and then we had this beautiful two-wave pullback. So we had a nice three-wave run yesterday, even though, you know, the markets obviously weren't open all day, but we did have that nice move. I had this at yesterday as nice move to the upside. Oh, actually, it wasn't this one. It was last night. There's the same pattern. Hold on. Let me scroll back over right here. The markets basically did the three moves on both time frames, but it was right here. Two wave. So we're getting that basically the three moves up. This was easier to see on a tick chart. And then it basically did the repeat here intraday today. Notice how they look the same, almost exactly the same. But really not bigger pattern setups. Let's go back and look at some of the other markets here. I'm going to pull up things like, let's look at like the bonds. Here's the daily on the Russell. So the daily on the Russell is trying to do that breakout. Didn't really have another pullback here before it kind of took off, so it could get a little bit trappy up here. Let's pull up some bonds. And we'll take a look at some Forex markets as well. Because here we had a steep momentum reversal down here too before we went into that Mega Phoenix and then the two-wave correction. So up until that point, you know, trends were pretty nice. We had nice consistent moves, but since the open, basically things have gotten a lot choppier. Well, that is thinking. Let's look over here at some of the other markets. I'm going to pull up some of our Forex pairs here. Here's our euro dollar. So we've been coming up off of the low on the euro dollar. Two-wave move down, another two, another two. Basically that momentum reversal. Three waves up. We're kind of at a zone where it could go and try to do a phoenix or a mega phoenix at this point. It's a really good support level, this channel break zone here. And it's basically a double tap of that support level. So on the daily chart, it's a pretty good level for a bounce. On the weekly and the monthly, things are still more iffy. I'm going to pull up the weekly here. We've been seeing this kind of playing around with this mess for the last year and a half here. And so it's trying to hold in the upper end of this trading channel here, which is what gives it that phoenix or even the potential for like a mega phoenix here to try to break up, but it has to hold this low. If it doesn't hold this low, then basically this is just a retouch of the resistance zone from this congestion, and it could start to sell off again faster. So we really, really have to watch that momentum that's happening within this range here. But right now, I do think it has a really good shot of holding. This is probably close to 76.4% Fibonacci fan. We've got, here's the first one you can see coming off of the first high. And then here's the second. So it's right at that second from the absolute high there. So right at that support, basically it has to hold that support. That's what it needs to do to get that move going on the upside. Now, the reason I'm saying this could be more of a megaphone or mega phoenix is because of the strength down here on the downside and this kind of like double tap, a lot of times this will have like a two-wave move back up and can kind of pull back in at that point. So that does have that potential for that to try to do that. It's not like great for a regular phoenix. We really would need to see it do this, like a double tap here to get that going. But I do think there is that potential that that can go up to that point too from here without stalling. So euro dollar, I'd be on the bullish side here as we go into next week. Just use the intraday charts for timing on that. The Aussie dollar usually trades kind of along with the euro dollar. You don't see as strong of a setup here. So we do still want to watch this on the intraday charts. It's kind of coming down into the lower end of the range. This is that like double tap type of risk I was talking about on the daily and the weekly on the euro dollar. When you get this breakdown from a channel, it comes back up into that range, and that can get momentum going on the downside. It's still not doing that here on the Aussie dollar. It's still holding the channel, but it is an immediate risk. Now, typically what we would have seen is this would have picked up faster to get that stronger move in, and it's not really doing that. So even though the smaller term move is pretty fast, can still hold the lower end of this channel and bounce back up. So I wouldn't get too aggressive on the short side on that here. Dollar yen is basically trying a tilted phoenix. So you've got your first move up here. Here's your correction. It's a little bit too short for a regular phoenix because when we're looking at our timing, we've got our move down, we've got kind of the congestion. We would usually expect around here to get that going. So it's kind of trying to do like shoulder, head, shoulder, and then a bigger shoulder, head, shoulder. So it's trying to get going off of that. Kind of went a little bit on the late side. Ideally, it should have taken off right about here. So it's a little delayed just with the time development, but it's not too bad. Puts resistance up here. So this could have that 1, 2, 3 in here. So I would be looking for on that. Let's go look at the weekly on this. So weekly is just still blah. It's not, great either way. So what we're looking at is this trying to do a 1, 2, 3 here and come back up into that zone. And that's what it's trying to do here. Dollar Swiss, we haven't really seen much on the weekly chart on the Swiss either. This actually was trying to do an avalanche and then just kind of went too far. So it had the 3 highs here after 2 waves up and then had a 2-wave move and then tried to do an avalanche for a breakdown, but just hasn't managed. I think part of that is because it's in midway on the downside move here. So it's still holding up pretty well, but it's not great as far as patterns. If this whole situation here had formed up here, we should have had a stronger down move at that point. Since it's at the midway point, it kind of creates more of that tug of war between the bulls and the bears. We are seeing a little bit of a shift in momentum here, but because this didn't go when it really should have gone, time development wise, this can still hold up pretty well and bring it back up to the upper end of the channel, even though the intraday or that smaller chart just doesn't look great. Here's kind of pulling up, so it's kind of doing a little bit of an early break. So it would need to do something to kind of slow down and try again. Treat that like that retest here. Notice here, actually had a really nice move higher coming out of Thanksgiving there. Hold on just a second, you guys. Taking a look at the NASDAQ here because it's hitting a little bit of support. Some of the smaller time frames. I don't know if I kept a NASDAQ chart open here. I did. Here. So we've got right at support right here. Just a little bit of scalp movement here. The the Kiwi rather, NZD, whoops, wrong button. So you want to see the Kiwi Loonie. That's the same chart that we're just seeing here on the intraday on the NASDAQ. Let me show you. See, look at that. Right there. It's the same pattern. So here's kind of your breakdown. This is just tilted more than this one as a base. The support is the same support that you got going on down here. It's struggling a little bit to get this momentum off the ground. It rounded off. Great inverse head and shoulders. I mean, this was a really pretty setup right here. Just not going as fast as we would usually expect with this daily support. So let's go look at that weekly. Whoops. What happened to my chart here? Here's our weekly. Pull up the monthly. A little bit of a bigger view on this. This is like what we had this morning in the overall market and last night too. So it tried to go too early. It's kind of doing that longer base. We're right at about a 1-to-1. So this is a do or die point. It could certainly try to take off here at this point. So I would mostly be on the upside, even though it's kind of starting off a little bit slower than I would usually like to see. It's still stronger for an upside move here than it is for the downside on this monthly time frame. Let's look at the US dollar. That was a beautiful megaphone there. Mm. We got support short term with that measured move here, and then the 2B. So that was great support. And then you had a 2B here. It's really pretty, but it's showing the same issue that we've got on the Kiwi Loonie, where it's just not getting going like it should have. This should have taken off here. Normally that's what we would have seen with this reversal pattern that we had happening here. This would have taken off more strongly. So that's kind of causing a bit of a concern for me as far as like the bullish side of things on both of them. We'll go back to this again. Not pretty. We don't have a real good second low in here to get that going. So it's kind of like shifting the channel again here. So let me show you what this looks like. This is what I'm looking at. So what I'm looking at is I'm transecting the moves. So what it's doing is we've got that slower move. So it's, bulls are really just not having it here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would do anything as like a new setup here. If you're in it, I would hold it, but I would get more aggressive with the stop on it. Really want to see it basically kind of do like that to try to do a tilted phoenix to see if it can go at that level, but that's going to be like a do or die point. It has to go by that point. So even if it flushes a little bit here, it could still have that move, but we really want to see it hold up there. If you want to get that bullish move going again, it has to go there. So right now I wouldn't do anything other than just like day trade stuff as far as new entries, and I would want to see kind of that measure time development to get that going on the bullish side again here. We'll pull up our bonds. This monthly on the bonds is really close to what we've just seen on like the 100 tick of gold intraday. So this still has some more upside potential on the monthly chart. 240, nice two-wave move up, nice two-wave correction. You got about a 1-to-1 ratio, so this is the first point that it could take off. It's the same type of do or die point that we just saw on the Kiwi, except that it looks a little bit better on bonds. So this will usually go with either the 1-to-1 ratio here, upside to sideways move, or it could try to go out to about a 2-to-1. So you'll see like this inverse head and shoulders here, or it'll go out and you'll have a bigger version. And sometimes this will pop, pull it, and then go too. But bonds are looking still like we're going to still see some more upside. I'll put the weekly here. I'll show you what's going on there on gold too, so you can see that comparison that I was just making. So what I'm looking at here is this. So on bonds, what you'll see is on that monthly, oops, I changed it. It's the same zone right here. So we're right up at about this level. So there's still more room for these bonds to keep going. Weekly time frame, pretty extended here on the weekly. So we've got a little bit of resistance to contend with on that weekly time frame. Daily, I'd be looking for like 1, 2, 3, something like that. That's going to pop this back up in there. That would go along with that intraday chart. I have some sort of weirdness going on here. Let's see if I need to. Roll over my contracts. Put us on our March contract over here. I'll probably clean that up. Let's see. What else do you guys want me to look at? You got anything else you want or interested in me checking out for you? Oil has just been crashing today. Let me grab a daily chart on that for you. And it looks like we'll probably see more downside in the weeks ahead. So here's oil. So you can see really steep sell-off here today. So this is pretty reminiscent of some of the start of some of these bigger corrections here. This one tried, but it was only one wave up, so it went for a 2T to start. But this has had a momentum shift here. So it's kind of at a do or die point. Is this going to go for a tilted phoenix, or is it going to crash and hold with this version? And that's what it's trying to do. So what we're looking at is this should probably keep going down over the next couple of weeks here, based upon what we're seeing right now anyways. GLD. It's still trying to hold the support. Let's hold the monthly. So monthly, I'm still bullish on this. Not much has really changed, but I do think we still have more room for correction, just like we've talked about the last couple of weeks. You know, we've had that really big extension here, but this is easy for this to try to go back up and retest. I mean, now we've got about the same amount of time correction here. So it's actually at a zone where we could see another push, which would go along with oil pulling back. So I'm kind of looking more, I mean, I was bullish on gold here today. That was one of the only two trades I had here. And I do think that we have room for this to head higher in December. Go back to their daily again so you guys can see the daily. So basically it needs to hold this low, you know, the zone of support, but it's trying. So it had formed kind of a little bit of a shallow avalanche here, but couldn't confirm. It only did that 1-to-1 ratio, which means that it's probably not going to keep going. It's more likely that it's going to try to bounce. Because if the shallow avalanche doesn't confirm right away with more like a 1, 2, 3 or keep going, it's easier for it to pull back up again. So I would be continue to stay more on the bullish side here as we go into next month, even though, you know, shorter term we've seen some of the slower upside. I think it's easier now for that to try to turn back around. TSM. Well, we are getting that correction here at highs. It is holding the exhaustion we talked about last week. It's just at a zone where it's easy for this to try to flush. So if you're long on something like this, yes, it can creep up, but because of where it is, this type of flush on the daily is just going to be more likely. I do think if that happens, there's a good chance it can retest it. So, you know, if it doesn't have the flush, it can just kind of keep still creeping, but this flush will probably try to retest. But it's really hard to say at this point. It's just go down to the intraday charts right now. There's nothing, I wouldn't look for a new entry on the long side. I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, I'm going to bail. I just kind of watch this on the intraday. You can see here today that gap down's a little bit concerning for the bulls, but it doesn't like totally kill it because this can still go like that and pull back up where it treats this like a two-way correction. So way more iffy right now. It just has too many either ors that are going to come down to just the very small intraday time frames to shift that momentum. All right, anything else you guys want me to look at here? Crone still looks like it wants to creep up a bit more. Nope. Is nope a symbol? I'm curious. I doubt it, but you never know. You get some pretty crazy symbols sometimes. Nope, nope is not a symbol. I guess they figure that would be too much of a jinx, right? Superstition. All right, you guys. Well, we're going to wrap up here then, and I'll get this posted up on YouTube for you to go and review. And I'll see you all back here next week. So have a wonderful rest of your holiday week and enjoy the weekend.